The music that you are hearing right now is the piece titled Higanbana, or Red Flowers at the Tomb. The song was a collaboration between Japanese composer Kosako Yamada and the poet Hakakushi Kitahara and was composed in 1922. It is being performed here by Yoshimazu Mera. The song's lyrics recount the melancholy tale of a young woman, alone at a cemetery, visiting the grave of her recently deceased son. Next to the boy's grave grow 7 higanbana, or red spider lilies. The flower's presence next to the grave is significant. Their bold crimson hue mirror the deep passion and bitterness of the grieving mother, with each of the 7 flowers representing the 7 short years her child had lived before his passing. The haunting final lines of the piece create an eerie juxtaposition between this red flower and the tragic loss of the young boy. Higanbana, eerie, red, still 7. How dreadfully red, only 7 was he. Hanakotaba is the Japanese language of flowers. It is a language which, over numerous generations, has become interwoven throughout Japanese culture itself. Born from Zen Buddhism and its profound appreciation for the intricacies of living things and nature, over time each flower has become coded with its own symbolic significance, with each one able to at once both convey emotion and communicate meaning directly to the viewer without the need for or use of words. Hanakotaba's unique space within the national psyche has meant that flowers have become a sort of reoccurring visual motif which permeates throughout the wider culture itself, and as a consequence, floral imagery holds special significance in much of the art which the country produces. From the haikus of arguably the nation's most celebrated poet Matsuo Basho to some of the nation's greatest directors like Akira Kurosawa, floral symbolism can be found throughout much of the work of many of Japan's greatest artists. Anime is, of course, no exception. Flowers have become key signifiers which aids the viewer in contextualizing and attaching greater significance to much of what is occurring before them on the screen. A flower's sudden appearance can reveal a great deal about a character and their worldview, their emotional state, or their narrative trajectory within the story itself. They become signposts which layer the narrative with suggestive meaning and add a level of depth to the visuals which cannot be understated. And there is one flower in particular that I wish to focus on in this video. Lycoris radiata, or the red spider lily, is one of the most visually striking flowers you're ever likely to see. Originally from China, it is believed that it was introduced to Japan around the time that rice cultivation first arrived on the island. With its sharp, coral colouring, the flower undoubtedly is eye-catching. However, its most noteworthy feature, and what makes the flower truly remarkable, is the incredibly long and elegantly curved stamens protruding from the bulb. These stamens give the red spider lily its eerie, predatory appearance. In Hanakotaba, the red spider lily represents a final parting, be it through death or separation, lost memory and abandonment. And it is these associations which make the 7 red spider lilies the perfect metonymic substitute for the dead child in Red Flowers at the Tomb, the song heard at the beginning of this video. Within the wider culture itself, the red spider lily has a staggering variety of names in Japanese. It is believed that there are close to 1,000 different name variants for the flower. The following are some examples that I'd like to touch upon, as they will go some way to illuminating why the flower has become such an ominous and foreboding symbol within anime when it appears on our screen. Dokobana, or the poisonous flower, named because the red spider lily is in fact poisonous. Households and rice paddies would plant the flower around the outside of their perimeter in order to keep pests like mice away. And in the years before cremation became commonplace, the red spider lily would be planted around the graves of the dead to keep pests from consuming the bodies of the deceased. You can find a nice play on this in Satoshi Kon's 2004 masterpiece Paranoia Agent. During episode 11, we discovered that Shonen Bat has entered entered into the Akari household to strike down the ailing wife of Detective Kaiichi. Here it is revealed to us that the Akari residence is surrounded by a garden of beautiful red spider lilies, and their sudden appearance at this moment betray them as harbingers of the seemingly ill-fated end that will soon befall the detective's wife at the hands of Shonen Bat. Consumed by poor health and seemingly given up on life, Ikari welcomes the escape of death at the hands of Shonen Bat, seeing it as something of a relief. When Bat appears to be preparing his killing stroke and the detective's wife is at her most accepting of her faith, the red spider lilies suddenly and violently shoot into shot, symbolically announcing the point of impending death for Akari, turning the household into a metaphorical grave for the woman. However, as the events of the episode unfold, the detective's wife regains her appetite for living once more and challenges Bat on his actions and his purpose. As she does this, the flowers suddenly begin to retreat as Ikari begins to move away from death and back into the world of the living. Shibito Hana, or the dead flower. The red spider lily blooms around the time of the autumnal equinox. At the same time as the spider lily begins to bloom, there is a national festival throughout Japan called Ohigan. Ohigan means crossing over to the other shore, the aforementioned other shore here being the afterlife. Ohigan is a 7-day Buddhist festival which occurs during both the spring and the autumn equinoxes. During this time, it is customary for people to return to their houses and visit the graves of their ancestors. There, they hold memorial services for the deceased family members. The autumn equinox marks that midpoint between the summer's transition through to the fall and into winter. Like the changing seasons, the festival provokes contemplation and meditation on a transition of another kind, the transition of life to death. With the red spider lily traditionally blooming around graveyards during the equinox, it became synonymous with the festival, and in turn became a signifier of death and the afterlife, even getting the name Higanbana, or flower of the other shore. It is also claimed that during the time of Ohigan, the land of the living and the land of the dead are at their closest points of convergence. Consequently, it is not uncommon to see red spider lilies presenting themselves in moments of a character's impending death as they embark for life's final journey to the other shore. As an example, let's go to the 19-minute and 24-second mark of episode 9 of Dororo. In a flashback, we find the titular character walking through a clearing of red spider lilies, with their mother Ojia trailing behind them. The red flower had already made an appearance earlier during the episode's opening, with a single spider lily growing alone, next to 2 unmarked graves, foreshadowing the events which would unfold later on in the episode. The scene opens with a tracking shot of the flowers, as we then cut to reveal the pair walking amongst them. The mother, Ojia, at her limit, eventually collapses into the bed of spider lilies and delivers her final words to her child before passing. As she does so, we can see the spider lilies occupying the foreground of the frame, symbolizing the final parting between mother and child. And as she takes her final breath and the anguished pleas of Mama, Mama overpower the melancholy OST, the scene ends with a lingering shot of a lone spider lily representing the child left behind. Jigoku Hana, or Hellflower. Earlier in the video I brought up the festival Ohigan. The name translates as crossing over to the other shore. The name Higanbana is one of the most common names for the red spider lily and translates as flower of the other shore. Upon death, the soul departs for the afterlife, but before doing so it must cross the river Sanzu, a mythological river in the Japanese Buddhist tradition. It is believed that when the soul reaches the other side of the river, it will be greeted by fields of red spider lilies, which grow upon the banks of the Sanzu. Additionally, in both the Chinese and Japanese translations of the Buddhist text, the Lotus Sutra, it is written that in Diyu, the realm of the dead or hell in Chinese mythology, red spider lilies are the flowers which grow there and mark a path to guide the soul on their journey to reincarnation. Diyu translates into Japanese as Jigoku, and Jigoku is probably most synonymous in anime circles with the long-running series Jigoku Shoujo, or Hell Girl. Hell Girl borrows a great deal of its symbolism from the mythological depictions of Jigoku found in Japanese Buddhist writings. Enma Ai, whose name closely resembles the actual lord of Jigoku, Emma-O, the Japanese lord of death, is the heroine of the series, and the Hell Girl's early appearances in the series are generally framed or established through various shots of red spider lilies, as well as other symbols of Jigoku. At the 15-minute and 40-second mark of the opening episode of the first season, as the setting transitions between the human realm and the realm of eternal twilight for the first time, the establishing shot used here focuses on the space of the Twilight Realm and its still life rather than Enma, who is out of shot within the cottage. As the shot's gaze slowly draws inwardly towards the cottage, the most notable feature in frame, and what most draws the eye, is what occupies the left to center foreground. a bed of red spider lilies. We then transition to the next shot as we see Enma donning her kimono, with the scene eventually climaxing with Enma opening her eyes to reveal a pair of crimson irises which mirror the flower's coloration. These two shots back to back, first of the red flowers outside of the cottage and then Enma and her otherworldly eyes, are a pretty efficient way of establishing synonymity in the viewer's mind between the figure of Enma and Hell. This technique is repeated twice more in the second episode, here at the 2-minute and 42-second mark, and then later at the 16-minute and 32-second mark, as the series repeatedly creates a parallel between the Hell flower and the Hell girl. Manjushage is the final name I'd like to touch on in this video. The name's origins, like the legend of spider lilies growing in hell, come from the Buddhist text, the Lotus Sutra. In the Chinese and Japanese translations of the Lotus Sutra, the red spider lily is referred to as Manjushage, and in episode 9, Manjushage is what red spider lilies are referred to as by Dororo as she awakens from her illness. In Hanakotaba, the spider lily can be a symbol of separation. I believe this connotation comes in part from the name Manjushage and its ties to the myth of the two sprites, Manju and Saka. What is unique about the red spider lily is that the leaves of the flower and its bulb grow separately, with the leaves only growing in on the plant after the flower's petals have already wilted away. In the myth of Manju and Saka, the two sprites were asked by the gods to care for the plant, with Saka guarding the leaves and Manju the flower's petals. As a consequence, the pair would never get the opportunity to meet. However, over time, the pair became curious about the other and arranged a meeting, even eventually falling in love. This disobedience angered the gods, however, and as punishment for their actions, a curse was put upon the pair of lovers, dooming them to be separated for eternity. In the 2013 film Mahou Shoujo Madoka Magica Rebellion, at the 1 hour, 11 minute and 46 second mark, Homura, after learning the truth of the labyrinth and upon destroying her soul gem, laments the events which have unfolded up to this point. As she does so, thousands of red spider lilies begin to grow up around her as the realization of what she is finally dawns upon her. Then, as Homura transforms into the Nutcracker Witch, Homu Lily, a portmanteau of her name and spider lily, the spider lily becomes one of the defining physical characteristics of the new witch in her second form. A witch's physical characteristics betray a great deal of information about a magical girl's interiority, and as the decapitated head slides off and away from the body, it is replaced by a crown of spider lilies. The following is an excerpt from the Rebellion material book, a booklet which was bundled in with the Rebellion Blu-ray describing Homu Lily. Her teeth are showing, her skull is melted, and her eyeballs have fallen out. A promise is the only thing that is pitifully planted in that head, which can no longer crack any nuts. But within the husk of the awakened witch is the distinct form of a magical girl. The promise which lies planted in that head is the vow that Homura made to always protect Madoka. As events unfolded, however, that melted skull, empty save for that promise and the distinct form of a magical girl, revealed to us that Homura's grief over Madoka's death was what eventually consumed her, and the red spider lilies becoming the object which symbolizes that promise is fitting, as it mirrors the tragedy of the sprite's story, a pair of lovers separated for eternity. And that's where we'll leave it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this one. I am doing my best to upload more often, even if it is still quite inconsistent. If you want to hear more from me, go and check out my podcast. The links are in the description below. And remember, if you like this video and want to see more like this one, please leave a like and consider hitting that notification bell and subscribing. Until next time, fair viewers, bye bye, love you, bye.